about survival mindset. I hope your program so far is going well. I hope you're having a good time with your FTO. He's able to answer any questions for you that you may have had so far. But today we need to talk about survival mindset, and we need to talk about officer safety and a few other things. So I'm going to begin just by kind of approaching our goals of this program. And one of these goals is officer safety, which is broken down into three other kind of subcategories that we'll call them. The first is personal, then we have public, and then we have peer. When we talk about personal officer safety, this is just officer safety techniques that you use as a deputy on scene and on your calls and just throughout your time on patrol. This is complacency, and battling that with yourself, and just keeping an overall safe mindset. When we talk about public personal safety, what I mean by that is that it's our job as law enforcement officers to keep the public safe. So we have to place their safety ahead of our own. So we have to remember it's our job and it's our duty to protect these people. So when it comes to the public, we place their safety first. And then lastly is peer safety. When I talk about peer safety, this is where I mean you, even as a new deputy, are holding your partners and your brothers and sisters in law enforcement accountable for their own complacency and for their own actions. So an example of this could be if you were to get out on a traffic stop with a partner, and you'll see some deputies do this from time to time. They will approach a vehicle, especially if it's like a small sedan, and they'll walk up and they'll kind of lean over the top of the window, or they'll walk really high up past that B post. So if you remember our A, B, and C post, typically on a traffic stop, you want to stop just behind the B post, and just little small things like that. If you can learn to talk to your partners and just say, hey man, it probably wasn't the best idea to lean on that car, or to get so far up on the driver, or anything else that you see there. Sometimes these deputies and you won't even realize that you're doing these things until they're pointed out. So it's important to remember to keep your peers in mind as well if you see them doing something unsafe. It can be a little awkward at first to try to talk to them about this, but most of our deputies are open-minded and they're open to criticism, like I hope you will be as well. This is not us trying to tell another deputy they're doing bad. This is us talking to them about this so that we can save their life in the future. So just to reiterate those, officer safety is one of the skills that we want to have. Just remember your personal, public, and peer safety under those. So moving on into our survival mindset that we want to talk about. First, we need to talk about mental preparation. Okay, um, if you haven't been in this job before, if you've never been in a really stressful or dangerous job, um, like law enforcement, you need to find a method of mentally preparing for your tour. And this can be any sorts of things. Some of the religious deputies that we have like to do a devotion in the morning to kind of prepare themselves for patrol. Some other deputies just do something just as simple as walking around, kind of outside in the nature or in the sun, just and drink their coffee and just kind of ponder and just get their mind ready for the day. Now, it's going to be up to you to find out what works for you, but you need to find some kind of method to help you be mentally prepared for patrol. We can see some very gruesome things, we can see some very dangerous things, and we're dealing with people's problems all day, every day. So you need to mentally prepare yourself so that you don't take that kind of stuff home. And the reason that this is important is if you're a younger deputy, but you can, it can be any stage of your life. But one problem we have, at least with newer deputies that don't have a lot of years on patrol, you will go to some of these scenes and you won't really you'll be numb to them. And I can tell you from personal experience, I have done CPR on children. I've worked fatality crashes. I've worked crashes where people have lost and severed limbs. Um, I've worked homicides and shootings and a great number of things early in my career. These things never affected me beyond the call itself. Once the call was over, I never thought about them again. They didn't bother me. I didn't dwell on them. I had no effects whatsoever from these calls. The issue arises years later where even though they still don't necessarily affect me on an emotional level, I do recall the events. I do see some of these calls that I went to from time to time. It's almost like little flashbacks. They're not emotional. They don't cause me any distress or sadness or depression or any of those bad things, though they may for some people. But even just the fact that they're still there and I'm still remembering that can have a negative side effect to it. Just reliving some of those moments in general, whether they're affecting my emotions at all. So just keep in mind some of those things and be prepared to see some of that stuff. So that leads us into our next kind of topic that we're going to talk about with the survival mindset is stress management. It's important to manage your stress. So when you're getting overloaded, if you've had a very busy day and calls, you have to remember that you're going to be coming in contact with some people in the worst times of their life. Okay, they don't need a deputy showing up to their home who is also having a bad day, and it affecting the way that you interact with those people. You know, whether you're dealing with a domestic or a divorce or child custody issue or something worse, you need to be the professional deputy who is there to support them. And it's going to be tough for you to support them if you're dealing with your own stress. So find a way to relieve some of that stress, to get calm back down, to get your mind back ready. So if you've gone through your mental preparation, you did the best you could to get your mind prepared for patrol. But sometimes things that happen during that patrol are gonna cause you to kind of get messed up again. So you're gonna have to find ways during patrol to reground yourself, and this can be just something as simple as just pulling over, just sitting for a while. Maybe make a phone call to your partner, just have a little fun with them for a little bit. Um, any number of things that you can do, and whatever they may be, just try to find you something. Moving on from there, we're going to get into tactical awareness. Now, when I talk about tactical awareness, we're going to kind of start right up here. These are called the Cooper colors. Lieutenant Colonel David Grossman also has a has a set of these himself. He uses a couple of different colors, but they all have generally the same idea. So when we talk about the color white up here, that's just where you're in a completely relaxed state. You're not really paying attention to your surroundings. You don't perceive any threats that could possibly be around you. Maybe this will be something like if you're sitting at home, watching TV with your family. Now, moving up from there, we have condition yellow. Yellow is where you're relaxed, like I am now. I'm pretty relaxed, but you're prepared and aware of your surroundings, and you've got good situational um, awareness. You're just paying attention to where people are moving. You're just scanning their environment, and just kind of looking for threats, but you're still relaxed too. So you're ready. You're ready to act if something were to happen. Yellow is definitely the lowest stage that you want to be at while you're on patrol, and generally it's the lowest stage that you want to be at anytime that you're in public. So try to maintain that awareness, and you can kind of train yourself to do that. When you're walking around in a restaurant, walking around in a store, just make a conscious effort to just kind of scan around and look at people. Over time, this will happen autonomously, and you will just do this without any thought, and it won't be any further stress on you. It just happens, and you can just maintain that level of awareness there. Now, that's not to say that you should never be at what we're calling the white. You need that time to really delve in and relax. You don't need to be condition yellow 24/7. You need that time to completely relax and just let go. But like I said, generally in the public, you want to be at that condition yellow. Talking about condition orange, then, this is where you have identified a threat and you're ready to act. So, this may be while you're out on a domestic, for example. While you're on a domestic, you should be at condition orange. While the people on scene may not necessarily be a threat at the moment, you know that they very likely could be, and you can target in onto just those people. You're not too much having to worry about your surroundings. You always want to have good awareness of your overall total surroundings, but you've got a couple of people to focus on, and you're really ready to act there. Moving on from there, we have um, condition red. All right, this is the time that we're jumping into action here. Something has actually happened. There is a threat there in front of us, and we've got to respond to that threat. Um, so moving on from there, we've got black condition black. This is a panicked um, condition. This is where you have a complete breakdown of mental and physical performances. Now, as part of our FTO program, you should have an assignment to read On Combat by Lieutenant Colonel David Grossman. He will talk about his versions of these colors, which are usually like white, yellow, red, gray, and black, or some variation of those. And what you will see Lieutenant Colonel David Grossman talk about is the physiological responses that the human body can have during these levels. So you can almost look at these like from white to black. You can also look at those as like a heart rate. If you're familiar with cardio training at all, you know you've got like a zone 1 and zone 2 and on up from there in your heart rates. You can look at these like that too. So we look at condition black, if we're going to compare it to a heart rate, usually around 175 plus beats per minute. In red, maybe somewhere around like 150 to 160 beats per minute, just on average, to throw that out there. But some of the physiological responses that can negatively impact you during these is like auditory exclusion and tunnel vision, among some others. So auditory exclusion is very simple. It's just where you don't have any perception of hearing around you. And tunnel vision is just where you don't have any perception of your surroundings from a visual sense. You may see the target that you're dealing with in code or in conditions orange and red, but that's all that your brain is perceiving is just that target, and you're not perceiving the other things around you. It's very important that you recognize when you're reaching these conditions, if you're suffering from auditory exclusion or tunnel vision, so that you can try to respond to these appropriately. Some visible signs that you can tell if these are happening, obviously if you have a very high heart rate, but also if you're sweating, if you're shaking or trembling, or any of those kind of exterior signs that you have. Now, some ways that you can combat these, if you know that you're on one of these high levels, you should be able to kind of notice, you should know when you're in condition orange. Condition red, you usually won't have a lot of time to think about, but throughout your career, you'll learn how to deal with it in the moment. If you know you're suffering from tunnel vision, one of the things that you can do is simply just look around, or without turning your head, just move your eyes left and right, just like this. That will kind of open your vision back up. If you now auditory exclusion is a little different, and there is a way to combat auditory exclusion. The problem is knowing that it's happening, because it's usually very short-lived and only in times of extreme stress, usually when you've entered condition black. But if you know you're suffering from auditory exclusion, or you may be about to suffer from auditory exclusion, sometimes just talking to yourself can help. So just speak out loud of something, tell yourself, pay attention, or any little quick phrase. So some problems that you can have with auditory exclusion is you may not hear the deputy next to you trying to tell you to do something, or you may not hear gunshots going off, or any other wide range of sounds. You'll read more about this in Lieutenant Colonel David Grossman's book. If you have any questions on that, feel free to reach out to me. This is one of my favorite subjects is the physiological responses to stressors like this. But just keep that good survival mindset and paying attention to what level you may be at, so that you can manage it appropriately. The last section we'll talk about is just a little bit of positive self-talk. If you're having a problem, mostly dealing with your emotions and things, or trying to manage your stress, have a little bit of just self-talk to say, hey, I can do this. Listen, it's going to be strange talking to yourself. That sounds silly, but if you're stressed out, just say, I got this. I'm a deputy sheriff. I can do this. You know, and you'll be surprised what comes about. Maybe a little tidbit that I use from time to time. It may be a little silly, but try this one day. Try a little Superman pose. Just stand up, put your hands on your hips, chest up tall, hands on the hips, and just stand like a superhero. And you'll see that the physiological response that you have will kind of give you a little boost in confidence, and it'll kind of help you manage the things that are around you. So, if you've got any questions on trying to maintain a good survival mindset, if you need any help on maybe how to talk to other deputies about what we call the peer safety, about trying to talk to them about issues that we're having, we'll be happy to help you. If you got any questions about Lieutenant Colonel David Grossman or some of the things that he talks about, feel free to come in. I'd love to talk with you about them. I hope your training's going well. Reach out to your FTO if you have any problems, and we will work on this next time.